oncoming traffic.
I'll join you.
Okay, we ready?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Larry Gessel, and our show today is called The Inside Look. I am the host, and the show is brought to you by Gessel and Associates Insurance Agency. And I'm here today with a dear friend, Michael Morris, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike. You've got some things that you want to talk about today, right?
The first thing I want to talk about is the show is always called The Inside Look.
It is,
the show
isn't it?
today.
The show today.
Just so people know, we'll always be
We'll
called
always
that.
be the same
Unless
name.
we get a sponsor that wants to buy the naming rights.
Oh, okay.
So if they're out there and they want to call it whatever, Popeye's Chicken and Biscuits brought to you by Gessel Insurance, we'll still talk insurance.
Maybe someday I can get my name on a stadium or something.
We're gonna work our way up there. You can be the Pepsi of the insurance business.
All right.
Larry, it's good. It's
I
so
settle
good.
for my face and name on the side of a beer truck, you know?
You apparently haven't seen your face. Listen, I'm excited this week because we got our first show out of the way. We got the first show jitters out. And we did an intro.
Yeah.
But I really want to get in depth on some topics that you've been going over, that you've been telling me, whether we're talking on the phone, just hanging out in person, that these things mean something to you. But you actually put down, you were writing something when we were together on Wednesday. And I looked at your notes while you were writing it, mainly because I didn't have anything to write for myself. And I looked at it and I thought, this is a really interesting A, B, and C, like the perfect client.
Yeah, so what Michael's referring to, we are part of an AM Spirit group, short for American Spirit. It's a business networking group, and we had one of the executives in, and he was asking the business owners in the room to identify what does it, if we were to refer business to someone in the room, what does an A list referral look like, and a B client or a C client, and I over the years, and more recently here in the last 12 months, we've been part of some business training where that has been a focus. Helping us identify what does your ideal client look like, and what they're ultimately doing is helping us determine the future of the agency, if you will. What is the makeup of your client list? What kind of people are they? Where do they come from? How do they behave? What are their common characteristics? How do you find them? So these are all things that most businesses sooner or later have to face and address. And it's interesting that it came up in our meeting today. And 4 or 5 different people went before me, and so I had time to really put it to paper and give it some thought. For us, because of the nature of how we do business, first and foremost, in our last episode, you brought up the fact that we're particular about who we work with or who we want to work with, that we go and visit with them, we get to know them. We don't believe that we can do a proper job of insuring a business or a family until we know quite a bit about them. Who are they? What are they doing? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? What are some of the things that they may be engaging in that they think is just a blast, but may be disastrous to their insurance,
right,
or not covered at all. So we need to know who these folks are. So there's a certain like-kindedness of spirit, of values that we're looking for in our potential clients. And then beyond that, once we've identified that person, what does a B client? These are people, by the way, that they value their possessions, their assets, because they've worked hard all their lives, whether it's their business to provide for family, or whether it's the home and the toys, whatever it is that they place value in, things that bring people together and bring them joy and happiness in their lives. We are looking for the people that want to protect those things. They've accumulated them, so it would seem natural that they would want to adequately protect them.
But let me ask you about this, because
Sure.
I want to break down these 3 different, really they're 3 different modes of client, right?
There were, yeah.
You've got, and the last one is the one that literally I had to think about it multiple times, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
In radio, this is called a tease. We're going to wait.
Okay.
But the first part was somebody who is a small to mid-sized business or individual that's trying to protect their family and all their assets, possibly their small business entrepreneurship. It's somebody that is looking for a consultation about everything they've got, right? That's the one you want to pour through.
It is, and I think that's one of the more difficult things in our business. I I hear these ads on TV or on radio, different insurance
Say
carriers
radio.
saying,
We're doing a radio
yeah,
show to make it look better.
and it is most commonly radio, but save 15% in 15 minutes, and it's like, come on, gag me. You're not accomplishing anything in 15 minutes. It's insanity, but that's what they want to perpetuate. It's a pain in the butt, quite frankly. It's a pain in the butt. No one wants to have to go through that to get the anal probe of insurance reviews. But
Right.
but man, there's no shortcuts for it. I've got to know what that business is involved in. I've got to know their distribution channels. I have to know their product. I need to know their employees. I need to know how the product moves. I need to know everything there is to know about that business or that family. My son Alex, when we're talking about auto and home insurance, man, there's a lot of things that go into it. We use checklists just to keep us on track, so that we don't forget things. Collectibles. Earlier we were talking about a claim that occurred where vinyl record collection wasn't covered properly. Well, how does that happen? So there's no shortcuts. So the thing that we value most is someone that will appreciate the fact that we will take the time. We will give freely of our time to make sure that end result product is the right one for them.
It's more of a forensic approach, though.
It is.
Right? It's not
It
an
is.
overview.
No,
You've got
no.
to dig
There's
through.
nothing overview about it.
But I think there are a lot of people who, I can tell you, the conversations I've had with people, they don't even know who their insurance agent is, right? Because they're buying it out of state or they're buying it from a big corporate group. They don't know who to contact other than I've got an 800 number. Those people aren't walking properties with them. They're not meeting with them face to face, and they're not going through the policy, as the agent pouring through it and then explaining it, right? We're just getting policies that we're throwing in a junk drawer somewhere or in a closet and hope we never need it. But you can never find that paperwork when something happens, and then you've got to find that 800 number and call in, and it's no different than waiting on DirecTV. You're the 20th in line, we'll get to you eventually, right? It's not how we do it. There's no customer service to it, right?
No, that's not how we do it. And we have to dig into those, what's called the policy declarations pages, and just start examining those and tearing them apart and dissecting it, and then ask probing questions to uncover. We have to be part detective, part insurance agent, part forensic scientist, whatever.
You have to kind of be part lawyer, right? Because
part lawyer, understand the legalese and the exclusions and endorsements and all that nonsense that people hate. And those are the things that people say makes insurance so boring. It's not boring to us because we know those are all pieces of a very large puzzle. It is just literally a very large puzzle, and at the end of the day, that end result is either going to do what it's supposed to do and protect you, or it's going to leave you hurting.
But it's also important that not only that you understand it, I feel like the consumer, they know they need insurance. It's been drilled in their head they need it.
Sure.
So they've been conditioned, though, to look for a cost savings or buy the minimum. Right?
Absolutely. And the state kind of perpetuates that too with the old state minimum liability insurance for automobiles, which is just ridiculous.
Well, it's the same thing with the umbrella coverage and underinsurance. Unless you're talking to an agent, you have a relationship, it's a little bit tough to know what you need, right? You don't want to find out that you didn't have underinsurance and now there's an accident and that person they're not covered, and now you've lost everything, right?
Well, and Alex can speak to this. We have very oftentimes we'll ask someone what their liability limits are, for instance, on their automobile insurance, and this is very, very, very important, critically important. And what we get back in most cases is, I don't know, but I've got full coverage. Well,
right.
Full coverage has nothing to do with liability limits.
But talk about that, because I heard somebody tell you or Alex, no, I'm fully covered.
I'm fully covered.
And I thought, you don't even know what's in your policy.
No.
You just said you're fully covered, so he would stop asking you questions. Right?
Yeah, it's like someone saying, when I introduce myself, I have insurance. Well, sure you have insurance. Almost everyone does.
Right.
But are you covered? You couldn't possibly know that unless you're one of our clients. 98% of the policies we look at, as you well know, have coverage errors or overpriced or a combination of the two.
But
It's startling. 98%.
I know. But what I think is funny is when you hear somebody says I'm fully covered and they don't have correct coverage. Right. Isn't it kind of like somebody that says, you know, I'm really good at swimming. I can't tread water. I just go to the bottom of the pool, but I'm really good at swimming, right? It's kind of like you don't know your
You're really good at
limitations until you
sinking.
really need it.
Yeah.
It's when you're having that conversation, do you think that's that kind of roadblock because they're embarrassed because they don't know? They don't know what they've got?
I think it's just lack of knowledge. You know, they most of them perhaps, I don't know, maybe they think they do have proper coverage. Maybe they've convinced themselves they do. You know, the human psyche, in order for us to admit that our coverage is screwed up, we have to admit that we screwed up.
Right.
Because we're the ones that put that policy in place, right?
Right.
So I have to admit to myself, first of all, and maybe to my loved ones, that I either didn't know what I was doing, or didn't care, or didn't take the time, or whatever it may be.
See, that's why I think it is. As a consumer,
there's some pretty heavy emotional things there.
well, as a
know.
consumer, you think you're making the best decision for you and your family.
Sure.
And we're saving money.
Sure.
But if you put price above protection, when it comes down to it, that lack of protection is not. You're going to say, "Oh, I saved myself $100 a quarter or whatever," but now I got $5,000 is not covered by insurance.
Yeah. So going back to you're right. You're absolutely right. But going back to your question, so that A client is the person that recognizes and acknowledges that maybe they're not as knowledgeable about it as they should be. There's something kind of tapping them on the shoulder, or something in their mind, or they're saying, maybe I should talk to somebody. You know, maybe I should have that looked at, type of thing. So that would be an A client, someone that values that personal service, that personal touch, and will listen to the steps necessary to get to the proper coverage.
What I thought was odd is that sounds fantastic. Your B client, I literally couldn't believe you wrote this down, because you said you're looking for the one who views the relationship with an agent as adversarial.
Right, that's a B client. So there are people out there that, boy, this will get me on a soapbox. So I'm going to make a blanket statement that we are moving more and more and more toward a society of entitlement. One of the entitlements that we see manifested in our world every day is the entitlement that I paid a little bit of insurance premium, therefore I deserve everything to be covered no matter what. It's kind of like everybody should get free health care. You know, well, do we? Why do we deserve free health care? Who said that? Do I want free health care? Heck yeah, man. Give it to me. Give me a free house too.
That sounds really entitled, Larry.
College education for my kids. I need a new boat too, by the way. There's no end to that list. But there are people that hate insurance companies to the point where they're going to treat me like dog crap no matter what I do for them, no matter what I offer them, and no matter what I try to accomplish for them. They're just angry. They're just angry people. They're angry at the insurance company.
But
they're angry at me.
You said that's your B client. Like
Well,
why do you want it? Because you want to be able to still teach them because they're so hard-headed. You want to show them the difference.
I'm hard-headed myself.
I know.
And I've been a fighter all my life. So part of my stubborn nature is when I get hit with both barrels up front like that, I take it as a challenge to find out what it is that's motivating that person to make them that way. So I will spend whatever time necessary to make a quick determination as to whether or not that person can become a reasonable person, whether I can have a conversation with them that might lead to a positive outcome, or whether they're just going to dig their heels in and be that person. You know, so we can't ignore those people entirely. You know, they're out there, and if I'm speaking to those people on the radio now, I'm sure there's some listening.
If they're entitled, they're probably sleeping. Yeah.
I'm sure they have their reasons for being angry and being upset. I had nothing to do with that. So what I'm looking to do is to determine whether or not those folks could be moved into the A list, if you will, where they could become a valued client and a client that would value the relationship. And by the way, we don't talk about our quote unquote customers as customers. They're clients. We view them as lifelong relationships, and to be treated the same as any other professional relationship, whether that be with your doctor, your attorney, whatever it may be.
The guy you do a radio show with?
Guy that do the radio show with. Yeah, he's as good as they come.
When we that was a cheap pop. When we're talking about those people, are you defining that by generation?
No.
Because here's what I find. If you look at the people buying houses today, 34% of the buyers today that are buying a house are millennials, right? And they get everything heaped on them that they're terrible people, just like the Gen X people Gen Y, and then all this other mess, right? The baby boomers. Everyone had that level where somebody looked at that generation and they said, those people just want everything and they don't want to work for it, right? So we keep pushing it down. But those people buying houses need car insurance, home insurance, life insurance. Do you find that is the generation that is more likely? I think they're the ones that will skip by the relationship part to save money, to go online because they don't want the face-to-face contact.
You know,
That's
it's kind of funny. What industry research bears out is that that generation will go out and do everything they can do online to research because they're curious. They were brought up that way. That's what they know to do. But when it comes right down to pulling the trigger, to making a determination as to whom they're going to choose to work with, they want to come and sit down with us. They want to have that consultation. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? So the insurance industry's challenge then is to make the buying experience easy for them in terms of making information available, but to be available for consultation face to face and for somebody to come out and look at that property. For instance, you could go online and buy a homeowner's insurance from any number of different places. I was at a real estate investors meeting last night, and the guy was getting ready to close on a house Friday. And I started asking him questions about the house. He said, "Why do you need to know that?" I said, "Well, for one thing, your insurance company is most likely going to send an outside company out, an inspection firm out, to look to see what kind of condition this house is in. So anything you can do, send me photos, send me the house, and did you have a home inspection done?" "Yes, I did." "Okay, I need to see that." So there's things that I'm looking for that will head off problems, because if they send out the inspection company and they don't like what they see, they're going to give you 30 days to get those defects corrected, and they're canceling your policy. Well, how much time did you just save having to go through that? Now you've got a cancellation on your record. Now you're starting the process all over again. Well, you obviously didn't make very good choices to begin with. What choices are you going to make the second time around? So that face-to-face is still valuable. But most of the people that don't value what we're looking to offer, believe it or not, are the older people. The young people, once you sit down with them and start explaining things, they go, "Wow, nobody ever told us that. We didn't know that. We've never heard that before."
Why would the older generation not?
There's just people that have had a bad experience one way or another somewhere down the road.
They got burned
somehow, and they blame it on the insurance company, and then everybody associated with it's bad people.
But do you think it's also kind of the way that it was hard to get people to change? I can remember the 70s, 80s generation. You knew your insurance agent, you knew your banker. You didn't change those things. And they would do these kind of gimmicks to get you to at least come and see them, or open a checking account, we'll throw another $100 in it, or whatever it might be, or we'll give you a toaster. That was because people didn't change their habits. I feel that people change their habits more now on a whim because there isn't that relationship. What you're saying is intriguing to me, that the younger generation is looking for that relationship to give. They're doing the research, but they're coming to you as you're the expert, whereas the older generation has been burned a few times, so it's your fault.
Yeah, I guess you're making a valid point. Yeah, we kind of all get lumped together, and it's still true this day. If a claim gets denied, we as the agency get held accountable for it, even if we've done everything right. If there's a claims denial, then everybody's mad at the insurance company, and now there's no differentiation between us and the insurance company.
Right.
We're the bad guys.
Right.
So,
Well,
there's another reason. There's another reason why we take so much time to try to ensure that doesn't happen. But the C client was the one that I think were kind of intrigued by, and that was someone that you want to go with that and run with that for.
I absolutely do, because I thought it was odd that you would want to deal with somebody who was non-renewed due to a claim problem or claims issues.
Yeah.
But you gave me an excellent example of somebody today, without naming names. Can you kind of give an example of somebody who they have a claim issue that's coming at some point? You're going to have damage, and kind of explain the fact that they wanted to cut their expense down. So what they did is they're underinsured for that property.
Yeah, well, the one I'm thinking of, and maybe I'm getting my conversations confused, was where a rental property, an investment property, had burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And this person approached me and said, "I'm being non-renewed. I'm in trouble. I've got 10 or 11 properties. I'm in trouble, Larry. I've been here, and here, and no one can do anything for me. And here's my story." And so as the story unfolded, he had a single-family rental property, and there was a domestic dispute, and
Please don't hold back. Keep going. It was the greatest story I heard this morning.
yeah,
You
so-
really brought the room down.
Well, it's a tragic story. The husband got into a physical altercation with the wife. The teenage son got involved, got in between the two, and I think he was injured during this process. The police got called. I think it was SWAT actually was called. The husband barricaded himself in the house. He caught the house on fire and then killed himself. And the house burned to the ground. So the insurance company paid out a sizable claim and promptly canceled or non-renewed him. And my first question to him as he was telling this story was, well, did you insist upon your tenants having renter's insurance, naming you as additional insured on the renter's policy?
Which is what made me laugh so hard when you were telling it, because that is a terrible story, but you had an answer. Like I don't mean that in a bad way, was you thought this through, and there was a mistake he made before he did any of this.
Yeah, and the reality, and so again, a C client could be made into an A client. In this particular instance, it's my belief that he didn't know. No one had ever taken the time to explain to him what could happen.
Right.
And to advise him properly on the steps that he could easily take that would have prevented this from happening. So when we run into someone like that who has had a bad thing happen, and let's face it, bad things happen to good people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all know what Forrest Gump said, right? It's true. So when we see someone being non-renewed for claims problems, we need to drill deeper and find out what's really behind that. You know, are these bad people that deserve to get non-renewed, or are these good people that just had a bad thing happen to them? So, again, in the vein of being willing to fight a fight, we will go to bat and fight whatever fight we can fight to help somebody when we feel it's justified.
Well, I think it's also important the fact that you're not turning people away because you're trying to educate. Jerry Hunt said this today that I thought was so brilliant. He said,
Jerry Hunt said something brilliant?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm so shocked.
Uh-oh.
But he said one of the things is being able to educate people is the number one thing about whatever industry you're in, right? But especially with you guys, because it's such a competitive field, right? And if everybody's looking at certain numbers or percentage off and all that, there is so much more to insurance that people don't understand.
Yeah.
To educate them, which is why we're doing the show, is this is not just some gimmick to, hey, call us, we're giving things away at 30% off. It's here's what's going to be valuable to you. Here's what you need to know. Yeah. Whether it's rain, flooding, fire, whatever. There are things that come up in our everyday life that we don't even bother to know if that's on our insurance policy.
Right.
That's what I think you do a great job of, is educating the people you're talking to, not to push them to buy a certain product, to explain what they need.
We do. And back to Jerry for a moment, and Jerry does the same thing in the real estate business. You know, he goes out of his way to explain things, and the inside look, you know, what we call the inside look. What are the things that you don't know that can harm you? So I think there are many people in our networking group that are committed to that cause.
I just thought it was a cool thing because you were giving an explanation about that. Every week you give a different explanation on a different topic. And you can see that people are glued to you, but almost in a way there's like a fear in their eyes that they're not sure about what they have and what they're paying for. But you sat down with Sue, and I watched you go through that. And when we talked about collectibles, and we might have said that earlier in the show or on the other one, it's not knowing if you're protected, right? So when you have all these nice things, the toys, whatever it may be, if you don't do a deep dive into what you've got, you really don't know if something bad happened, what to do.
Yeah. Well, and in Sue's case, we're hoping that we can actually eliminate one of her policies. She has a business owner's policy, a small policy that her circumstances have changed, and we're of the mindset at this point that we can eliminate that policy and endorse her homeowner's policy and keep her whole. So,
which will save her money in the long run.
A bunch of it.
She'll be better protected, but save money. It wasn't that you sold her or talked about selling an additional policy. That's the other part is adjusting what you're doing to make sure you have the right coverage and that you're
Absolutely.
not paying for things you don't need.
Absolutely. Yep.
Tell people, because you're not going to believe it, we're almost out of time again. I know how much you hate it when I say it's been 30 minutes, but how can people get a hold of you?
Well, we can be reached at Gessel and Associates Insurance Agency by calling area code 614-697-2020.
2020.
2020 vision. 614-697-2020. Or you can go to our website, Gessel, that's GESSELINS, short for insurance.com, GesselINS.com. And our show, again, is The Inside Look. I'm Larry Gessel, here with Michael Morris, and the show is hosted by Gessel and Associates Insurance. Look forward to talking to you next week.
Yep, we'll see you next weekend.
Great, awesome.